Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Borough of Manhattan Community College Women HERStory Month lineup of activities. Today, we have a panel discussion titled From the Pandemic to Spirituality, Wellness, and Self-Love. And this panel discussion is going to be a panel of professional women consisting of mental health professionals, religious leaders, community representatives who offer support to those in various cross-cultural and religious communities on ways in which a woman like me, which is the theme for the BMCC 2022 Women HERStory Month is. How women can incorporate and find meaning within various activities and support systems that can enhance their psychological, emotional, and social well-being amidst the pandemic so that they can continue to self-love and be productive women within their communities. Now, when I put this panel discussion together in collaboration with the committee, I thought very hard that, as a faculty at BMCC and hearing stories of, how the pandemic has affected, of course, everybody around the world, but in particular, the BMCC community of students, faculty, staff, and I hear from my students all the time that one thing that they may be, not aware of are people who are close to them, who are able to offer support in terms of, their spirituality, to enhance their spirituality, to lead them into, wellness, to take care of themselves, to love themselves, and, so that they can continue to get away from the adverse effect of how the pandemic has affected many people around the world. So today we have 5 or 6 guest speakers who will be speaking to us. And, I sincerely want to thank them for joining us today. In a few minutes, we will get started. But first and foremost, I wanted to thank the Women's Resource Center at the Borough of Manhattan Community College for allowing this panel discussion as part of the lineup of activities for the 2022 Women HERStory Month. I want to also thank my department, the Center for Ethnicity and Race Studies, for co-sponsoring this event. And also, of course, all the speakers that are here, the students from both BMCC and York College, and anyone joining us from wherever that you'll be joining us from. So the first speaker that I'm going to introduce to you, actually what I'll be doing is to post their bio, as I call them, into the chat. And she comes to us from the Oyotunji African Kingdom in Sheldon, South Carolina. And her name is Her Royal Grace Olamiji Pierce Adefomi. And her topic today that she'll be bringing us from Oyotunji is connecting with the inner self. So let's bring Her Royal Grace Olamiji Pierce Adefomi from Oyotunji Kingdom to the floor. Thank you so much, Your Highness.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure. Should I just go into speaking?
Yes, please.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, as the professor said, I am coming to you today from the Kingdom of Oyotunji African Village. It has been in existence for over 50 years in the Low Country, what many know as Gullah Geechee Nation is where we are located. It was founded by my father-in-law and his contemporaries for African-American people who want to reconnect with their ancestral culture and traditions. My father-in-law was coined as the father of the cultural restoration movement. And so that is the work of this place. Throughout the pandemic, actually, prior to the pandemic, I was, for the most part, just, enjoying my city life in Atlanta, Georgia. I was coming back and forth to the village to fulfill different community responsibilities, once a month or so forth and so on. But when the pandemic hit and we were put all back at home, I came back home. I came to my village, and it really changed me because the pandemic changed everybody. Being at home, being amongst the community, completely increasing my responsibility to the women on site has really rearranged my priorities in this life. And so when it comes to connecting with my inner self as a traditionalist of the Yoruba culture, I begin always with my head. We, as the Yoruba people, understand that we were born with purpose. We were born with predestined destiny, if that makes any sense. And a part of that destiny is your head. It travels with you, knowing everything that was predestined for you in heaven, and it accompanies you to earth to serve as a guide, rather, as you fulfill that destiny. When we come to earth, because of the birth process and everything that goes into actually coming into the earth, we don't completely remember what it is that is our predestiny. We have different tools within our community, within our tradition, that allows us to connect with that. But for the young women, which were very, very many who were contacting me throughout the pandemic, one of the number one things, the first step to identifying with oneself and connecting to that original destiny is connecting with your own inner head, your ori inu. So every morning, I anoint my head with cool water. And we have enough time for me to tell you this very short invocation of sorts that I go through every morning before I greet the world. I greet my head. And it starts with, I bless the inner spirit of my head. I bless the spirit of my head. I bless the inner spirit of my head. I bless my spiritual vision, which is your third eye. I bless my eyes so that I may see truth in my life. I bless my nose so that my life be sustained by spirit. I bless my ears so that I may always follow and recognize the truth of spirit. I bless my mouth so that I can affirm the blessings of spirit, to give thanks for, the blessings of spirit. And I'm going fast, so I'm missing a bit of points. But in general, the prayer is to awaken the natural divinity within me, so that I can be better prepared to face the world as I move forward throughout my day. And so connecting with myself always begins with my inner head. Cool water in every single morning. I have young women who have been following the tradition now for maybe a year or so, and everybody finds, as you go through life, you have challenges, you come across roadblocks, and every time they want to get on the phone with me, for the most part to vent, I always ask them, have you been blessing your head every morning? That's your first point, your own self. So often we want to go and we want to come outside ourselves, but it's a lot of power with just focusing and being comfortable with moving through those cycles within one's own self. Apologies, I had a call come through. Connecting with one's head, sitting in meditation, being quiet with oneself, are all ways that I continue to put the ladies back on track when it comes to any challenges that they have. It's very, very powerful to connect with one's own head. Yesterday, I even had an experience. I did a very strong Ori invocation, because we're in festival moment right now, festival time. And anytime you're planning an event, things come up. Nothing ever goes as planned. And so we had a very, very big challenge when we woke up yesterday morning, and I prayed to my inner head. And by midday, the challenge was solved. And some people will say, oh, well, that's just a coincidence. in the tradition of the Yoruba people, we believe that there is no such thing as coincidence, only coinciding incidences. Everything is happening for a reason. And so I really attribute the fact that the challenge or the solution that we came about yesterday was largely, I attribute it largely to the strength of my own Ori, to the being in alignment of my own Ori. I was just in awe. It was such a big solution to have happened less than a quarter of a mile away, something that we were trying to solve all the way in China, basically, if you get what I mean. You know, we were trying to source some things and we found it very close by. And so for the most part, that's pretty much how I have been able to move through the challenges of the pandemic my own self. And that is a primary focus for young women who have come into our community and those who have reached out to me just as a leader of this community to connect with their own inner selves. There are a lot of complex head rituals that we do in our tradition, but cool water is so powerful. Since time immemorial, it's existed. It carries the prayers of all of our ancestors since, and all of the experiences of all the individuals who have been on this planet. And so it has a lot of powerful divine properties, and we use it for every single ceremony. And so that is, I would say in a nutshell, how I connect with my inner self and how I advise and guide other young women to connect with themselves.
Thank you very much, Your Grace, for your contributions. You have about, 4 minutes in your allotted time, and I'll probably ask you a question so that you can maybe spend the rest of the 4 minutes. Now, when you have, of course, first and foremost, the importance of Ori, which means, in Yoruba tradition, your head is your destiny. So whatever you do with your head, it leads you to your future. It leads you to your everything that you want to do in life. So when you do these cool water activities or cool water blessing of your head, what are the ways or methods in doing that? Because some of our audience may want to find out how, the process of, blessing one's head. What is the process of that, and how may one bless our head every morning with cool water?
Excellent. And so the process is very simple. You want to get some spring water. If you don't have access to spring water, tap water is just fine. Preferably leave it in the sunlight or the moonlight the day before so that it charges with some positive energy. And you're literally just taking the water and you're anointing the top through the back of your head. You're taking the water, you're anointing the top to the sides of your head. And then in every step for every other part, you're taking the water, but your third eye, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, and then your entire face, you're anointing with this water. For beginners, like my son, Prince Ade, he is just turned 5 years old about a week ago. His abbreviated version for his Ori prayer, because we teach them as early as possible how to connect with themselves. He just says, I bless my head, I bless my head, I bless my inner vision. He goes, I bless my eyes, I bless my nose, I bless my mouth, I bless my ears, and I bless my entire face. And then at the end, he holds his head and he says, Oriawu, Oriawu, Oriawu. And that one means, may my inner head, may the deity that accompanied me to earth rise to infinite heights. May it reach its ultimate level on earth. It's a strong invocation. It's a strong prayer to every morning. And so just in terms of basics, my 5-year-old is doing it. So that's the most basic way. But Professor, if I may share a document, I actually have that on a PDF. If we want to share it with the group, I to follow up with you.
Yes, you may post that in the chat for
Make
everyone to
that
access.
Get it right now.
Yes, you can go ahead and post it in the chat. And during the Q&A, we can revisit your discussion. And, those who have questions, I'm sure will ask. And also, if you don't mind, to post in the chat how people can connect with you, those interested in traditional healing, traditional systems of blessing one every morning. You can put your contact information in the chat. So let's give a warm round of applause for the presentation. Thank you so much. Now we're going to move to our next speaker, and she's Dr. Padmini Murthy. She's a professor and global health director at the New York Medical College School of Health Sciences and Practice. And also she's the chair of the International Health Section of the American Public Health Association, a UN rep American Women Medical Association. And of course, her titles goes long into the document that I'm going to post in the chat. I'm going to post her bio in there. So she's an accomplished, woman, accomplished woman. And her title today, the title of her topic today is the importance of exercise, yoga on women's health and well-being. And Dr. Padmini, do you want me to start sharing your slides now, or you want to speak
Yes,
first
no,
and you
could
let me
you,
know?
because I think for some reason my Mac is like acting up. So,
Yes,
I mean, I
okay.
don't know why. So I tried to share it. That's why I sent it to you. I would really appreciate that
Yes,
if you could
sure.
share my slides. And
Yes.
thank you so
Can
much
you
to
see my
you
screen?
and the organizers for having me on. And thank you to the previous speaker for your very eloquent remarks. And so we are actually in a I would say in a quandary, because we think we are getting over COVID, but I can tell you as a health person, we still have some time to go because we can finally say we are rid of COVID. But during these 2 years, we've all faced some unprecedented challenges. And one of the things I have found personally, and dealing with others in my profession, that definitely exercise is so important for our well-being, because mentally too, we've all gone through so much of trauma because we've lost people we know, and then we've some of us in the health care profession have seen the untold and misery of the suffering which COVID has brought on. So could we please move on to my first slide, Dr. Remy? Thank you. So the objectives in my talk, and as you can see, I have two logos. One is the Sustainable Development Goal 3, because we are doing this. It's like really a double, what shall I say, milestone we are celebrating. One is the Women's History Month, and also the ongoing 66 CSW, that is the Commission on Status of Women to the UN. And you can see the other slides I have is women there doing different forms of exercises. So my talk will briefly discuss what health is and why exercise for women is important, and what is the role of yoga in promoting mental health. And again, let me assure you that all these things are scientifically, there is a lot of evidence that exercise is very beneficial for health, and also it is beneficial, and yoga is beneficial for mental health. So next slide, please. As we are aware, this definition by WHO is, long-standing. So health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So what I would like to say is, participants, honored guests, is you can see complete physical, mental, and social well-being. We may look okay, a person may look okay, but mentally we may not be okay. And we need to address this because we've all going through so much of stress because of COVID. So keep in touch with people. You need to talk to them, use any kind of communication, meditate, because think of yourself and focus, because only when the mind is healthy can the body be healthy. That's why, in medicine, we use a term called psychosomatic. So if somebody's mental health is affected, it also affects their physical health and well-being. And this is definitely a human rights issue, because we are thinking about health, and unfortunately the access to enjoying health is not the same across populations. It's not even the same across a particular region, because of the various challenges we face. There may be barriers, especially now, financial barriers. And with all the lockdowns we have had, you could not go to the gym, you could not pay the money to go to the gym. In case your gym was fine and you were comfortable going, and you did observe all the protocols of public health safety, because of the lack of finances. That is why it is so important. Like, you can walk. By walking, okay, some of us who live in New York, it's cold now, but you can walk inside, you can do yoga. That's why it is so important, because by doing all this, we are stimulating our chemical receptors called endorphins, which give us which make us happy, which also do have other effects. It's good for your heart, it is good for your gastrointestinal system. So basically, exercise is really good. But again, any exercise you're starting needs to be done with caution. You cannot run like a marathon the very first day you're exercising. So again, if anybody has any underlying conditions, please, I always tell patients, you talk to your physician to say that what is the exercise you can do. But again, regular exercise, 30 to 35 minutes, at least 5 times a week, is really beneficial. And the other thing is that when mentally you are strong, it also helps you to be physically strong, and for you to cope with the stress we are facing. Because one of the things, I would like to put it in very layman's terms to get the message across, is when we are stressed, we release a lot of cortisol and other hormones, adrenaline. So you do not want to release so much on a regular basis, because again, these hormones can also cause issues. So you need to make sure you can cope with stress. So this is a coping mechanism. When we are driving a car, we wear a seatbelt to prevent us getting hurt if we get into an accident. The same way, when you are walking on the road, you look very carefully. You're not using your cell phone, you're not texting, you're not tweeting, you're not speaking, you walk across. So exercise is prevention, ladies and gentlemen. So it's so important that we do not put this at the bottom of the burner, that exercise is crucial. Next slide, please. So why is it so important for women? Because there's enough research and studies which shows that exercise helps to counteract the mood swings. Everybody has ups and downs. We are human beings. So exercise helps us to counter the extreme mood swings. And also, after a certain age, bone loss increases, osteoporosis, there is osteopenia, and also increased risk of fractures for older women. So exercise helps to reduce this bone loss and osteoporosis. It keeps your weight in check. It improves sleep. Today is National Sleep Day, ladies and gentlemen. So you exercise, you get a good night's rest. You get the right amount of the NREM and REM sleep. So exercise is really helpful. And also it helps us to build muscle mass and reduce body fat. It's really important for women, especially as they are, entering into perimenopause and menopause. You really need to do the exercise to keep your body weight, to make sure that it helps you reduce reduce osteoporosis. Nobody can fully fight osteoporosis, but then you can work to reduce how much of bone loss there is, and so that you don't have fractures. You try to prevent them, and also your whole psychological well-being, especially when we are dealing with stressful times like COVID. So and there is so much of research, because it also helps to maintain your heart health, which is really important. Because unfortunately, we so many people think that, oh, a man is more prone to a heart attack. No, a woman is also at risk to a cardiovascular event, as we call it. And unfortunately, sometimes for women, it is so sudden, they can't even address it, because they don't know the issues. They may not be aware that the symptoms they're presenting with is because of their issues with their heart. So this is, again, so crucial that we exercise, because if you don't take care of your body, nobody else will take care of it. Next slide, please. So yoga benefits for women. I put this slide here because you can see that how when women are pregnant, we also tell them to do light yoga, because studies have shown, again, you don't want to stand on your head and, do Shirsasana or something like that, but you can do mild yoga. There is chair yoga, which is recommended for people who are not able to sit down in the classic yoga poses. There are studies shown that when a woman does exercise and even does yoga, especially breathing, the pranayama as we call it, it does reduce her risk for preterm birth, for intrauterine growth retardation, that means the fetus grows well, and also for any bleeding during pregnancy. So what I'm trying to say, all these are not a substitute for seeking medical attention when a woman is not feeling well or when she's pregnant, but just help to reduce the stress and the challenges one can face. So yoga is very good for heart health. Again, it's good for your menstrual cycle. It is good for the gastrointestinal health. It is, so overall, it makes you happy, as you can see, the psychosocial health. So overall, the benefits of yoga are really good. And the reason why I am focusing on yoga is not because I'm a yoga practitioner, but to do the breathing, it also increases your natural immunity. Yoga, Tai Chi, exercise also do increase natural immunity. And I want to share another thing. When walking, there are studies which have shown, there's so much of literature out there. If you walk in a figure of 8 while walking for 20 or 25 minutes every day, it has shown to reduce, high blood pressure and promote general well-being. And also exercise does reduce the glucose levels in the body. So overall, I just want to say, and the last slide, please, my last slide, that we really need to do exercise, especially in a time like this. And I think for some reason, my last slide is not up on the screen. So I'm just going, there's the last one. Yeah, so I just wanted to say, thank you to everybody in different languages, because we are an international audience. And one of the things is, in diversity is their strength. For those of us who celebrated St. Patrick's Day yesterday, today is Holi. That's why I'm wearing a blouse with so many colors, because Holi symbolizes spring in India, the advent of spring. We are all looking forward to spring. But what I just wanted to say, that as women, we need to be committed to ourselves, because if we are not strong, we cannot do what we have to do. And at the end of the day, if you don't take care of your body, it's not going to take care of you. So thank you so much, and over to you. And I would just like to say, unfortunately, I have to leave a little before, like in the next 15 minutes, as I'm also the delegate, or the public delegate of the officially United States delegation to the CSW. So unfortunately, I need to jump off because I have to. So please accept my sincere apologies. And thank you again to the organizers.
Thank
the
you so
panel.
much. Thank you, Dr. Padmini, on the importance of exercise yoga and, for women, especially during this pandemic. And of course, always, not only during the pandemic. So would you mind to post, maybe if you want, since you're going to be leaving soon, some of our audience members may have some questions or, follow-up questions from your slides. Do you mind to share your information in the chat? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put my email, so if anybody has any questions, they could reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Padmini. Next, the next speaker is Reverend Susanna Macomb, and she's a Global Council member of World Yoga Community. She's also a counselor on spiritual well-being and also an interfaith minister. And World Yoga Community is one of the co-sponsors for this event. The title of Reverend Susanna's presentation is Balance, the importance of balance, attending to spiritual, mental, emotional, physical well-being, and balance with both spiritual and practical suggestions. Of course, that seems like a long title, but the overall topic or theme is on balance, and she's going to discuss elements of how we as women, as young females, as young ladies, can have balance in our lives. So Reverend Susanna's bio is also posted in the chat. And before she comes up, periodically, I'm going to be posting the attendance link in the chat. Please kindly fill it out. Thank you. Reverend Susanna, you have the floor.
Akaro.
Ekaro. Oh, you remember that. Ekaro means good morning, Yoruba language.
Om Shanti and happy Holi and blessings and peace. And it's wonderful to be in this international group of beautiful, strong women. And I see some men who support us. So for 25 years, I've been a spiritual mentor and counselor for women and for men, a lot of women. And during the pandemic, I could tell you my phone didn't stop ringing. People had lost, loved ones. I had so many people who called me who lost their jobs, their livelihood. Some had to leave their homes, move cities. There were mothers trapped, felt trapped suddenly with 2, 4 children at home, homeschooling, crying. They needed to talk, cry. So my topic is balance. Now I'm going to begin with spiritual balance because that is sort of my expertise. And also, if you have spiritual balance, everything else seems to fall into alignment, right? Because what is spirit? Spirit is not your mind, it's not your emotions, and it is not your body, but it encapsulates all this. Emerson did a wonderful essay on the oversoul. I don't know if you've ever read it. If you haven't, do read it. And he says that the soul uses our mind, our intellects, our emotions, and our bodies like we use our hands and feet. So when people come to me, I begin with prayer. Okay. And I suggest everybody here begin with prayer. If you are not a religious person, prayer does not mean it has to be in a religious form. If you are, wonderful. If you're Christian, pray as a Christian. If you're Yoruban, pray as a Yoruban. But prayer is like talking to God. It's talking to the universe. It is putting out there your intention. So begin always with prayer. And then I really emphasize meditation. Now, I'm a minister for 25 years, but before that, I was a corporate executive, traveled the world, high stress. So I know what life can do. And I was working 12, 15 hours a day. And to the outside world, my life looked wonderful, right? But why did I start meditating? Because I didn't have inner peace. And I wasn't seeking God. I believed in God. And some people say to me, oh, well, Reverend, I can't meditate. Everyone can meditate. You begin by breathing, being with your breath. And then you begin by being mindful, being with what is. I really suggest, if you want to learn to meditate, to find a spiritual teacher. It helps. I've been meditating now over 40 years. And when I started, believe me, I wasn't adept at it. I started with various spiritual teachers. And now I can tell you, ladies, it is the best thing that I've ever learned how to do. And I am telling you that meditation brings you back to the core of your being, to your spirit, to your soul, during crisis, during life-threatening illness, during tragedy, during economic hardship. It brings you to a point of centeredness where you can access greater clarity, greater joy, greater inner peace. It doesn't necessarily change your life, but it connects you with what Oprah calls your inner GPS that will guide you through life, through your next steps. So my first question would be, do you feel connected to your soul? And what does that mean? Spirituality, someone once asked me, and I wrote this in my book, and he was an atheist, he was a psychiatrist. What is spirituality? You have to define it for me. And I said, okay, connected to oneself and thereby able to connect to others and the world at large. If I'm talking to a religious person, I would say connected to one's Godhead and able to connect to others' divinity, other people's Godhead and the cosmos. But it's semantics. So are you connected? Ask yourself this question. If you do not feel connected to your soul, I'm going to ask you to begin with write one thing down that you can do to connect yourself back to your soul. And don't make it unachievable. Could you meditate for 15, 20 minutes every day? Would it be going to a place of worship or an online community, a spiritual community? One thing that COVID did is look how many gatherings there are now. If you don't even have to go to church, there are all these spiritual communities online that you could connect to. What is the one thing you can do to connect yourself back to your soul? Einstein said, show me a person who does not stand in awe at the mystery of life. That person is asleep. Are you awake? So that's that. Then there's the mind, right? Oh, by the way, in Hinduism, since World Yoga Community is here, meditation, Dr. Padme was talking about yoga. Everybody knows the physical yoga, right? But do you know that the word yoga has absolutely nothing to do really with physical exercise? It comes from the Sanskrit yuj, which means to connect back, to yoke back to what? To that which brings freedom, joy, and bliss. And there are actually 4 kinds of yoga. And one is, of course, the physical yoga, but Raja Yoga is the diamond path. Meditation is the direct path. So now the mind. Are you present? Do you find yourself ruminating, worrying about what's gone in the past? Are you always thinking fearful of the future? Do you feel able to cope? Can you focus? If you can't, so what can you do to help yourself? Well, one of the things is mindfulness. Everybody knows about the book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, is practice every day being mindful. Right now, I'm talking to all of you. I see all your faces. I'm present. Are you present? When you're working on a paper. Students, when you're studying, are you studying or you wish you're not studying? You wish you're doing something else. Being present is one of the best things that you can do. You know, there's a Buddhist story of a man who wasn't, he was a monk, and he wasn't the smartest. He did everything wrong. And this elder monk gave him a job just to polish shoes, right? He was this very simple man, polish shoes. And he said, and do this, be completely present, polish shoes. This man reached enlightenment, being fully present, just doing the same thing. If you look back in your life at the times that live eternally in your consciousness, they are the times you were fully present. Times that live, we all have those moments, right? That live in us as if they're here today, that you never forget. You were fully present. Now, of course, life takes you here and there, but if you practice this, just every time you find yourself losing yourself, bring yourself back to the moment, accepting the moment, what is. You're training your mind. You know, during the pandemic, people, who lost their livelihoods, lost their families, they would come crying, what to do, what's going to happen? Is this going to end, right? Is this going to end? This is going on forever. And I would say to people, do not, the worst thing you could do, you're going to torture yourself. If you're putting yourself into the future, live today in the moment and ask yourself, what can you do now? What steps can you do now? Now then, check in on your emotions. Do you feel joy? Are you living in fear? You know, there's this another, I love stories. There's this wonderful Buddhist story of a boy who, this terrible monster comes to devour him. And he says, I'm going to destroy you, the monster says. So the boy hits him first with a hand, one limb, then another limb, then his foot. And each time the monster says, I've got you, I'm going to kill you, until the boy finally hits him with his head and he has every part of him stuck to this monster. And the monster goes, ha ha, you have no more limbs left. I'm going to destroy you. I've got you. And the boy in that instant realizes that the monster is fear, his fear, something he's created. And you know what happens in that moment? Vanishes. So in every moment, the antidote to fear is love. Love. And you could choose that moment to moment. And one of the ways is in service. You feel overwhelmed by life, by the pandemic, feed an elderly person. Even if it's one person, take care of one person. Overwhelmed by the war in the Ukraine, what can you do to help? That's one way, is service. Love. Think about it. Anything positive, anything constructive comes from love. Okay? The Christian teaching, Jesus taught, God is love. And it is loving one another that we come to know God. So emotionally, do you feel disconnected? Reach out in love. There's John Mundy says something I love. He says, none of us gets to heaven alone. We get to the heaven holding the hand of the person we've helped, and in the other hand, the person who's helping us. So we're a giant chain, you know, elevating each other. So again, write down one thing that could help you connect emotionally to feel joy. What would bring you joy? There was a wonderful book in the 1980s called The Artist's Way. It was about an artist, but it sold millions simply because we're all artists, really. We're artists of our life. And one of the things I'll never forget she said is that every single person should have a 2-hour date with themselves every week. Isn't that a great idea? Take 2 hours, and you must do this alone, where you either create something or go someplace beautiful or go to the farmer's market, eat raspberries, whatever brings you joy, alone. There's this saying that says, it's very important that every day you take a half hour for yourself, to nurture yourself, except when you're very, very busy, then an hour is essential. And it's one of my Sufi teachers used to say, it's very important that we purify and revivify to better fulfill our mission in the world. Retreat is not selfish, it's essential so that you can fulfill your better mission in the world. And then there's the physical, what Dr. Padmi is right, yoga, she's given all the statistics. Exercise is so important. During the pandemic, if people felt trapped, what do you think Peloton soared? You know, people got a stationary bike. I got one on Craigslist, inexpensive. And while I would read or, you know, watch a show on my iPad, I'd be at, you know, on my bike. Walks, you know, to get fresh air. Everybody needs to walk half hour a day. If you're depressed, I know people who suffer clinical depression on medication. And when I ask them, do you exercise? Does it help? And even though they're always battling clinical depression, they tell me it is the one thing that helps them.
Thank you so much, Reverend Susanna. We're a little bit behind. There's going to be more time during the Q&A and also the feedback to continue the discussion. Apologies to the speakers. I know the time allotted was 10 minutes, and you know, I feel that we need maybe 3 hours for this program so that we can have you know, all the input from everyone. I mean, of course, we can't relegate women's lives, women's issues to just 2 hours. And there's so much to learn, so much to share, and so much to acquire from these professional speakers who are here today. So my apologies that I had to cut your discussion, but during the Q&A, we're going to have an open floor for reflections, for questions, for answers from both the audience and the panelists. So anything that you have missed or you know, you were cut off during your presentation, you will have that time to you know, continue the discussion. Next, I would like to bring our next speaker, Dr. Debbie Almontaser. She's the founder and CEO of Bridging Cultures Group and also the board president of Muslim Community Network. And her title for her presentation today is going to be on reflections on how her spirituality nurtured her wellness and the need to self-love, showing others how to get through long days in isolation from the world. I have posted Dr. Debbie's bio in the chat. Dr. Debbie, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. It is an honor and a privilege to join you all today as we celebrate Women's History Month. It is an honor and privilege to share this platform with so many amazing and dynamic women. I want to first start by greeting you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, which translates to peace and greetings from our beloved God who is merciful and abundant in so many ways to all of us to nurture us. I greet you in peace. Today is actually Friday. It is our Sabbath, which we have our afternoon prayer that marks the week. We start it with the Friday and end it with the Friday. And I'm so delighted to be here with you today. As I sat here and I listened to all of my beautiful sisters who've already presented prior to me, it's just so wonderful to see, you know, the common ground that we all share from faith tradition to faith tradition. And it shows how we are more alike than we are different. And it shows how there are so many things that mean something to you that also means something to me. So it's such a blessing to be able to connect those dots and find that common ground that binds us. My presentation today is really looking at how my spirituality has nurtured my wellness and the need for self-love. Many of you have touched on some of these things, but I want to also share with you from personal experience. As an observant Muslim who prays 5 times a day, who fasts the month of Ramadan, who's gone and made the pilgrimage to Mecca, who tries as much as possible to read the Quran on a daily basis and to center myself in my prayers in the 5 prayers that we do daily. During the pandemic, it was not, you know, not only the most important thing that played a role in my life, but it was the biggest part that played a role in my life. As you all know, we were all, you know, destined to be in our homes, in our spaces for many, many months with having no connection to other people except for the immediate family that we lived with. And then, of course, using a platform such as, you know, Zoom and WebEx and a variety of other things to keep us connected. But what I found to be really the most sustaining thing in all of this is having time, you know, the time that we used to use for traveling, the time that we used to use, you know, to do things that, you know, required us to leave our home was really the time that I felt that I was able to center myself in my spirituality. And one, be grateful for all of the things that I have been given. And one of those things that I've been given, and we all have been given that are on this platform today, you know, is our health. You know, there are so many people who are not joining us today because of the pandemic. Families lost 2 or 3 people. In my, you know, immediate vicinity in Brooklyn, just calling people and finding out that they lost 2 or 3 people in an extended family. It was devastating to see that. So it really made me be a whole lot more grateful for everything that I have, and most importantly, my health. And, you know, one thing that we all have to keep in mind is, you know, health is wealth. If you have your health, then everything else, you know, will fall into place. And we should consider our health as wealth. That really cannot be bought, right? It is something that God has given us and has nurtured. So being grateful was something that I felt that my spirituality really helped me understand that I needed to make sure that I always remembered. Being mindful on how I cook my food and how much I cook my food. As you all recall, during the pandemic, there were, you know, supermarket shelves that were empty because people went and bought everything. And so, you know, the abundance of food wasn't there as we have always seen. So just being mindful of how much to put, what ingredients to put, how much, stretching things. Again, these are the things that my spirituality taught me to do and helped me understand that I needed to do that. And as we have now, you know, shifted from the pandemic and we're getting back to life as it was, you know, I want to maintain, you know, these things, these, you know, spiritual things that, you know, I've developed, you know, as I go forward. I want to continue to be mindful of how much food, you know, to create, how much ingredients to put into it, and really stretch it, because it's so important for us to be mindful. There are people out there who don't have what we have, and always keeping those people in mind is really critical. Another aspect that I felt has been a part of my spirituality is also, self-love. Many of us that are on this call are basically people leading people, working with people, giving guidance, giving leadership. And we take no time to take care of ourselves. And it is time that we create that time and that we create a sense of self-love for ourselves, because if we cannot love ourselves, how are we supposed to show that to other people to be able to illuminate or emulate that love and that care? So what do I mean by self-love? I mean simply taking care of yourself. And I love my sisters who were talking about doing yoga, taking time to exercise, having a healthy diet and a balance. Those are all the elements of what I mean about self-love. And the second part of self-love is also, we as women have to prove ourselves sometimes 2, 3, 4 times, with our counterparts, the men. And so it's really important that we have that self-love and that confidence. The work that I do, as a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, a lot of times I'm in spaces with men, and I sometimes have to assert myself to show that I know what I'm talking about, and that I'm the boss of my company and you can't tell me what to do. And so that comes from self-love, the confidence that you have to, put into yourself every single day when you show up. And so that's something that I want each and every one of us to make sure that, we are giving that self of confidence and making sure that we are also extending it to all the women in our circle to, be able to show that kind of confidence. In addition to, to self-love, it's also, being very mindful of everyone around you and how you show up and how you, want everybody to show up. So making sure that we are mindful to create an environment that is welcoming, an environment that is valuing and celebrating the vast diversity of our communities, where we are, showing people, not just in word that you are welcome here, but also in our actions, making accommodations for one another. The other day I had gone to a gun violence event, and it was the first time that the city had actually been very mindful to make sure that they had halal breakfast. So it was really special to see that this was something right now that is, being seen as a priority. And we have to, acknowledge these, little moments of, of glimmer of hope, to also make sure that it's happening for all communities, that other communities, especially communities that come from minority communities, that we have to show that opportunity. In addition, in our programming, making sure, like this program here today, it's so beautiful to see the vast diversity of women who are on this panel, who are coming from all walks of life. This is how our events should be, no matter where we are in the country, in the world. We have to show this unification of women coming together, of men coming together from all walks of life, because someone said earlier, our diversity is our strength. It is absolutely our strength. And the only way that we could do that is we continue, to work collectively and cohesively as a community, in creating these opportunities for us to be able to speak. And it shouldn't be just, in that month of, celebrating women. It should be throughout the course of the years, the course of the year. And, what I want to, point out to all of us is that we're here today, but we're gonna, end this program. And I think that our prerogative here is that we have to take what we have done here today to other communities, and other centers and other venues to say, I was just a part of this program. This is what you need. You need to connect with this person, with that person. Let's make sure that everybody shows up, that everybody is in the room, to show the vast diversity of our city, of our country, of our world. And so I hope that we get the opportunity to work, much more in the future. And, my last and closing words to you is, as we are now halfway through Women's History Month, we still have some days to go. Utilize this moment and amplify, your voice individually, amplify the voices of other women in your circle. And let's not forget about the up and coming women that we really need to amplify and uplift and give them the courage and give them the confidence that they too, can do this work. One aspect also, from my spirituality is that, I've also learned that we're not going to be here forever. And so it is our responsibility to start training and preparing the next generation of leaders by making sure that they're learning from us and are able to take that baton and continue the work even better than what we have done. So I send you all love and greetings, and I wish you a wonderful weekend and a blessed rest of the Women's History Month. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Debbie, for your presentation. And again, I could sit here and listen for hours to all the contributions from everyone. Don't worry, we're going to have enough time during the Q&A for those who would like to, continue their discussion. Next, I would like to bring up Mrs. Carrie Brett Etsy. She's a good friend, and I've had the pleasure to travel with her on various mission trips to Costa Rica through the International Youth Fellowship, IYF, and also the Good News mission in Manhattan. Mrs. Carrie Brett Etsy's title for her presentation is "The Heart is Meant to Heal." You have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I don't have much time, so I'm just going to share my screen right away and just share with you, how I am able to overcome difficulties and challenges and trauma and despair. And that's why I wanted to talk about the heart was meant to heal. Dr. Remy, can I have sharing privileges?
Yes, let me make you a co-host so that you can share. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to just share a little bit. So I truly believe that the heart was built to heal from anything. And so one quote that, really resonates with me, and I think about this quote a lot, is, "It's not what you say out of your mouth that determines your life. It's what you whisper to yourself that has the most power." It's not what you say out of your mouth that determines your life. It's what you whisper to yourself that has the most power. Because I can change my words based on the environment I'm in, based on who I'm talking to. But what's really important, it's what I'm whispering to myself. That has a lot of power. And so I just wanted to share a quick little story. So if you look at this right here, it's an elephant and he's bound, right? And so a grandfather and his son were walking through the field and saw this elephant bound, this huge mature elephant bound by this, tattered piece of rope. And so the grandson asked the grandfather, "Why is that elephant not running away to the field and, being independent and living his life? That rope has no power over him, Grandpa." And the grandfather said, when that elephant was younger, that rope held him. And every time he tried to escape from that rope, it pulled on his leg, it pierced his skin, it yanked his hip so it would get dislocated. And so with all that pain and trauma that the elephant felt, the elephant did not want to try anymore, right? And so the elephant now is an adult and the elephant is still in this position. And so when I thought about that, what is actually keeping that elephant in that position? Is it the fact that the rope is really strong? Is it that the rope has so much power over him? No, that's actually not what's keeping the elephant bound as a mature elephant. It's the thought. It's actually the thought that when I'm trying to move, this trauma happens to me, this pain happens to me. So the rope actually has no power over the elephant anymore, but it's the thoughts that he's whispering to himself, right? It's the experience that he had when he was younger that's actually keeping him bound. And so that is why, to heal, we have to consider what we are whispering to ourselves. Because if you think about it, we're made up of all different things, our body, our mind, our soul, our spirit. But if we focus solely on our body, then there's the other 4/5 of us aren't being neglected. But that 4/5 of who we are, that's actually the us, the me, the thing that makes us, make decisions, the thing that makes us love, hate, become jealous, contradict ourselves, the thing that makes us, feel appreciated, the thing that makes us do everything in our entire lives has to do with that other 4/5. And so what I have figured out, through my mentors actually, is that I have to not only nurture my body, I have to nurture every other part of me that makes me actually who I am. And if you think about it, why would our creator, right? Why would God create us where our bodies can heal? We get a cut, the blood clots, and then we get a scab, and then the scab goes away, and then we have our beautiful skin again, right? Why is it that only our bodies, our physical bodies, would be meant to heal? Every part of who we are was meant to heal. Our mind, our heart, our spirit, our soul, not just our physical body. And like I said, that other 4/5 of us, that's who we are. That's who we are, right? And so if you look at just the human body, most of our physical body is made of water. The planet is mostly water, right? And I say this because, in Christianity, the Bible, the word of God is actually, God's word. And, no matter, what you believe, God's word is symbolized as water. It's something that we cannot do without. We cannot do without God's word, right? And so if we try to heal and try to overcome and try to, move through difficult situations and challenges without a spiritual connection, then it's not going to work. And so that's what I've learned in my heart, right? And so when I talk about like what we whisper to ourselves, sometimes, there's a destructive voice in kind of what I call an echo chamber, where we're kind of thinking through things, and it's kind of like we ask ourselves questions and answer it at the same time. And we're in this echo chamber and we're going back and forth with our thoughts, and they're just bouncing on the walls and coming back, right? Just like I mentioned with the elephant. I can't move. This is too traumatic. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. But the heart was built to heal. It was actually made to heal. And so oftentimes when we're in our echo chamber, those voices come, I don't know if I'll ever overcome it. I don't know, this is too much. I can't handle it. And sometimes, over the years, speaking to so many people, we've had the thoughts, I could just fall asleep and then not wake up, and then, life will go on and it will be okay. I've had so many women say that to me. So many young mothers say that to me. So many women in relationships say that to me, in unhealthy marriages say that to me, so many things. And so sometimes we have this destructive voice and it kind of whispers, yes, you're right. This is too much. You can't overcome this. This is not the best way. This is the best way, right? And so when we're stuck in that echo chamber of thoughts, that is when the healing process is really stuck, but our hearts were meant to heal, right? I know this is not science class, right? But Newton's law of motion is a body in motion will remain in motion unless it's acted upon by an external force. And so while we're inside of that echo chamber, it's really important, and so many speakers said it before, that we make connections. So if we know that the heart was meant to heal, it is meant to heal, just like the physical body was meant to heal, then we know there's a way out of this difficulty. And the way out of that difficulty is to get out of that echo chamber. And more often than not, what has to happen? Someone has to help you out of that echo chamber and break those continuous thoughts, right? Because whatever is in our thoughts get dumped in our hearts, and then it grows almost like a seed, right? So we have to check the thoughts that we are having, right? And so last thing I want to say is this idea of connection. We inhale and we exhale. If we inhale and take in so much oxygen is really awesome for us. Taking so much oxygen and never exhale carbon dioxide, then we won't make it. If we only exhale and never inhale, then we won't make it either. So that exchange process is really important. And if you look in nature, that exchange process is everywhere in nature, everywhere. And every bodily system that we have goes through that exchange process again. We inhale, we exhale, we take in food, we filter it, we clean our kidneys, then we have to excrete what we don't need. Everything is that exchange process. And like I told you, our bodies go through that exchange process, and that's how we're healthy. It's the same thing that our mind, our heart, and our soul and our spirit has to go through. We have to connect and we have to exchange. So when I'm caught in my echo chamber and I have all of these thoughts, I have to connect with someone that I trust that can actually give me the love, give me the care, give me the wisdom, give me another heart where I can accept that and get rid of the one that I have. Because just like if we take the kidneys, right? If the kidneys don't get rid of toxins, then our blood is poisoned and we get sick. If any destructive thing that we're whispering to ourselves is not out, then we fall into despair. And with 40 seconds left, the last thing I want to talk about is the redwood. And what's amazing about redwoods is that with a redwood, they're so tall, they're so amazing, they live so long, they're so beautiful, huge. They should fall if something happens, right? They're so tall, they should be toppling over. But redwoods, if you look at the roots of redwoods, they connect. They're not deep either. They're not very deep. They're more shallow than many other trees, but they connect with one another. And because they connect with one another, the trees stay up and live for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so just like the redwood, as women, we are meant to heal, but we're not meant to heal. We're not meant to function in isolation. We are meant to connect with each other and hold each other up. And so that's how I've been able to heal. Knowing that I was meant to heal is the first step in that process. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Carrie Brett Etsy, for the sharing of the slides. And during the Q&A, I would like you to actually mention something about mind education and how you got to be doing this and how we actually both know each other, through the mind education program. We're a little bit behind, but we're still doing okay. It just means during the Q&A, the time is going to be shorter for interaction. But next, I would like to bring up our last speaker, last but not the least, Dr. Chenzira Davis Kahina. And she's the founding director of Peer Ank M. Smaitawi and also the director of AST Speaks. The title of her presentation is New Woman Rising, Healing Beyond the Pandemics. And I've posted her bio also in the chat. Dr. Chenzira, you have the floor.
Greetings. I am very grateful. I want to thank you, Nana, Dr. Oluremi Alapo, for giving me this opportunity to share. I will be quite brief in light of what is taking place. And also, I'm going to share with you exactly where I am so that everyone understands how we've been able to handle the pandemic or the post-pandemic, or just the challenges and the structuring or restructuring of how the pandemic has affected us spiritually, our body, mind, soul, spirit, and consciousness. So I'm going to take a moment and ask that everyone take a very deep breath. Hold that breath for at least 4 counts. And release that breath most in a timely fashion. I will show you exactly why you do not see me on the screen yet, only because I want you to see the space that I'm in and what has allowed for me to be able to do these types of presentations actually while I'm in transit and on the fly. So I'm going to take a moment. I hope everybody's ready. Greetings, greetings, greetings. But more importantly, I want you to see where I'm at. Are you able to see that? Are you able to see that? I want you to get a deeper understanding of how, when we speak of body, mind, soul, spirit, and consciousness, and how it connects to New Women Rising, which is an initiative that started with helping women to become empowered through health and wellness. We use a cultural heritage education paradigm so that we were able to reach women that to some were unreachable. In many instances, we reached out to women that allowed themselves to be taken into journey ways that were very, very counterproductive, did not facilitate their skills, talents, and expertise, and definitely impacted our families, our villages, our nations, and more. So the reason I wanted to show you where I'm at is because it's places like here on II St. Croix in the Virgin Islands where we encourage persons during the pandemic to deal with wellness first, to handle their infrastructure, their body temple first, and to do so in a way that allowed them to bring into order truth, justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, and harmony in all of the ways in which they work. And when we say truth, justice, order, balance, divine righteousness, reciprocity, harmony, we're speaking of a very feminine ancestral principle known as Ma'at. So those 4 letters, M-A-A-T, in English, we translate that to meaning truth, justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, and harmony. Several of the things that we work on when we speak of New Woman Rising, and we always say New Woman Rising, staying in the heights, speaking of ourselves in a powerful place of ascension. We utilize these different paradigms that allowed for us to work on persons' understanding of culture and looking at culture, not only in the foods we eat or the belief systems that we have, but our values, our virtues, the mores and traditions of how we engage and express ourselves in this life. We look at healing. And when we say healing, we always connect that with wellness. Healing is wellness. Healing is wellness in a form that is implementable and is practical. And we speak of healing based on where people are at, what people are able to contribute and do, and also taking it to another layer of full strength engagement, far beyond just the body temple. We speak of, we speak of greetings. We speak of ways in which we can restore healing that allow for our body systems, our body temples to be balanced. And during the pandemic, of course, that was a serious challenge. Persons were restricted to their homes. Many times, some people have the homes that you can stay at home probably for 6 months in bunker. But many of our sisters, as well as our brothers and their families, were placed in a situation that was more stressful for them to stay at home. And so we developed different ideas, different activities that we could share with our brothers and sisters in this region of the Virgin Islands and the wider Caribbean, and also to our sisters and brothers in the 48 contiguous, to be able to, to be able to implement things that allowed for them to facilitate culture, healing, and wellness in the space of their homes, especially during the time of the pandemic, during the lockdown, more specifically. We also highlight the arts. And when we speak of the arts, we're speaking of the visual arts, the performing arts, the cultural heritage arts, the fine arts, and the culinary arts, and all that comes with that. And I want to take a second to highlight, keep in mind, culture, healing, and arts, yes? And then we also spoke of technology. One of the things that happened during the pandemic is like how we're engaging now. Everybody became a technologist. Everyone became a media star, and everybody had their own TV show during this whole pandemic period. And several things happened, especially with our women folk, is that women folk, we're accustomed to the touch and the hugs and the engagement and the direct communication. And we started to create very innovative techniques and strategies of how we engage using technology, even if it required that we sang together, even if it was one at a time, because sometimes in Zoom or Jitsi and other networks, trying to do choral readings and choral singing becomes a challenge because of certain delays. But persons started to really engage in technological activities, programs, and developments that facilitated our ability to survive and handle the additional anxiety, the additional depression, the additional trauma that persons experienced during the pandemic. Again, culture, healing, arts, technology. And that last piece that brings us to what New Woman Rising facilitates is we call the chats, CHATS, C for culture, H for healing, A for the arts, T for technology, and S for spirituality. The spirituality allowed for us to integrate things that seemed kind of airy, things that were very fiery, things that were very earthbound, and things that were fluid like water. And I think you can see what we've been able to achieve in that particular space, because it required for us to develop platforms using our technology that allowed for us to help persons to create innovative spaces of survivability and health and wellness and culture and technology and arts fusion in the balance of their environs in their homes, or the homes that they were forced to share just because some persons, as I said earlier, did not have a stay-at-home home. And that created its own layer of anxiety, its own layer of depression, and its own layer of trauma that many persons are still experiencing. Another piece that New Woman Rising facilitated our ability to do and engage in was to make sure that there was a did you hear it? Silence. Sometimes we think we have to fill every second, every squinette of time and space with sound or activity or motion or engagement. And one of the things that facilitated our ability to help our sisters, our brothers, their families, and of course our children to survive through this particular period of time. And I'm going to call post-pandemic, because some people feel like this pandemic is ongoing and perpetual into eternity. And I come from a space of, I do think positive, and I always like to invoke that which is positive and uplifting first. And I'm praying that we will have opportunities to share in a different world order, yes, but in a world order that facilitates our shared humanity, in a world order that allows for our sisters and brothers to restore how we engage with each other, how we communicate with each other, how we navigate between physical distancing and spiritual harmony and unity, right? And that's what we've been able to do and bring together inside of New Woman Rising as well. And of course, there's a number of different academic elements and studies that we can add to this piece, because what we were doing originally was to look and see what is the impact, what is the influence of how persons engage during a pandemic during limited travel, during limited social communication and contact. And what impact does that have on a person's psyche? What impact does that have on our women folk that come from a very social, emotive, engaging, I need to touch, feel, and be in your presence physically for me to really engage with you. And now I'm turning around and I'm being not forced, but by various legal order, governmental order, international protocol, being encouraged to no longer have physical contact, physical engagement, and how that changes our whole social construct, because at the end of the day, we're still human. And no matter how much technology we utilize, we came to see, and I'm sure this is shared from the portions of the presentations I've been able to hear even today, at this particular time. And 2022 and moving forward is giving us an opportunity to restore the balance, to restore the harmony, to restore our humanity that we share, right? So this comes across, again, like while some of the work that we do at Per Ankh and Smaitawi, and I would like to highlight that our whole mission is around instituting and promoting culture, healing, arts, technology, and spirituality that support and promote life, inspiration, freedom, and education. So when you hear that, you're hearing chats for life. Our whole understanding of how we engage with one another, how we bring forth our spiritual form, how we're able to be, and I can go into any synagogue, temple, church, cathedral, spiritual space of fellowship, and I'm comfortable because I know it's a relationship we have with the creative source by all the names. I say Netzara, some say Heru, some say Yeshua, some say Elohim, some say Jesus, hallelujah to some, hallelujah to some. We are supposed to be able to share in our humanity. And that's even on another plane than even being involved in interfaith engagement. Because what we're doing is we are sharing our respect for one another's faith. And that's what Women Rising within Per Ankh and Smaitawi has been able to do in many of our ministries, whether it is to do a house blessing. And again, house blessings became because persons were concerned on following the various pandemic protocols and making sure there weren't any more than 10 persons if permissible, or 20 persons if it were permissible. But the intention was people still wanted their homes. Christenings don't stop. Children are born during this whole period of time. So again, engaged in that type of spiritual fellowship and ministry to be able to give the same spirited, foundational forms. Conception, literally, and post-birth, to make sure that we were aware. People want to speak of pandemic babies, and in actuality, we have to be even more engaged and more sensitive and more loving and more caring and more involved in how we deal with any physical engagement and spiritual engagement and psychological engagement for these women and their partners that are bringing forth children in this new global world system. Very different. And be very mindful of how these children are being born, coming to the earth, whether it's through natural birth, delivery, cesarean section. It's very important that we add that spiritual linkage and connection when we're doing this type of work, right? And the other part that New Woman Rising through Per Ankh and Smaitawi is involved in, of course, and that's part of what has been the connection with the illustrious, my beloved sister, Nana, Dr. Oluremi Alape, has been around cultural heritage education and helping persons to see that cultural heritage education, CHE for short, is a way for us to make sure that we do transcultural blending and engagement that is respectful and honorable, and that we also no longer keep this resistance between our women folk, first and foremost, because the women are the backbone of our society, and the women hold up more than half of the sky. And we're the womb keepers. Whether you deliver physiologically through your biological frame, or whether you nurture and cultivate the rearing and the upbringing of children. It's really important that we navigate all of that inside of what I'm sharing with you during this profound gathering of women.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shenzira. Sorry, I had to cut you
No,
off.
no, it's not even sorry. That was the end.
You know,
I'm
like
very grateful. Thank you.
like I mentioned to the other speakers, you know, we need a 3-hour program or 4 hours, because given that it's Women's History Month and the Commission on the Status of Women is still, you know, ongoing, the
Right.
discussion beyond, you know, we need to have a discussion beyond spirituality and wellness and self-love, all this encompassing into what we're all, encompasses all the discussions that the guest speakers have tabled here today. So what I want to do is just to leave the floor open and ask for any questions or comments from any of the audience. And we also have a representative from the Women's Resource Center at BMCC that will be addressing us in a few minutes. But I want to thank all the speakers for their contributions today. Very valuable. And if you don't mind, to share your contacts in the chat in case some of our audience members would like to, you know, continue the discussion or follow up on your work or find out ways to learn about what you've discussed here today. I know 10 minutes was very short, and, you know, my apologies that we had to cut some of the speakers off, but the floor is open for the next 15 minutes or so to have an interactive dialogue from the audience and also the guest speakers. So any questions, any comments, and let's try to keep the comments to, you know, about 2 minutes, and, you know, short questions so that we don't go way off time. Yes, Dr. Kapal Singh.
Dr. Remy, first
yes,
I want
it's good to have you join us, you know.
Thank you.
Men supporting women.
Yes. By the way, my background is I'm a psychiatrist. I'm very impressed by the talks given in this program by different speakers. I think this is wonderful. It makes me very proud of all of you that you are really members of the rising spirit of the women, and that's what we need. And I come from the Sikh perspective, where Guru Nanak is the founder, and the teachings of Guru Nanak emphasize a lot about the women's equality, gender equality, and the complementary role in creating good life and maintaining it and creating the leadership as an ongoing basis. Unfortunately, the whole world, a majority of the world, is a patriarchal society. And that's why we also use the word he to God instead of, both father and mother. Having said that, I'm very impressed. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure to participate and listen to your views. And my best wishes for further progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kapal Singh. Are there any more comments or questions from anyone? Yes, Guruji, one of our co-sponsors.
Thank you,
World Yoga Community.
Thank you, Dr. Remy, for putting up this wonderful program. I was watching all the program in the silent mode. Very hard to speak because of the tooth problem. I'm so happy to hear from Dr. Padmini Murthy, Reverend Susanna, Dr. Debbie, and Dr. Chensira, and Kerry. So it's a beautiful way to gather together as an international group. I'm so blessed to listen to you, and I know we all should do hard work to change the world. So many things are going on around the globe. You see the war and unnecessary things, and most of the time women and children will suffer. So we had to educate men more. When women are strong in a country, that country will change. Wherever women are president or vice president, there's no big problems. That's the history. So we had to educate women from childhood how to take care of the community, not only a family, not only a child. So when women are strong, I know men will listen to them. So we need lot of work to do. So Remy, thank you for your leadership and hosting this program.
Thank you very much, Guruji. And if you don't mind to put your contact information in the chat, Guruji is a yoga master. And, if you're interested, our topic from spirituality to wellness and self-love. And we had a couple of the speakers, Dr. Padmini Moti and also Reverend Susanna Macomb. They mentioned about, adding yoga exercises to your daily routine. And, if you don't mind, you can put your contact information in the chat. Any other questions or comments? The floor is open. Let's see. Mrs. Shade Fashola, do you have any questions or comments? And she's joining us from Maryland, the DC area, I believe. All right, let's see. What of Miss Danica Brown? Okay, if there are no more questions. Oh, yes. Hi, Miss Danica. Yes.
Good morning. I don't have any questions, but Her Grace Olamiji Obalina invited me, and it's been great. I love sharing and hearing and connecting with everyone. So I'm definitely going to be following up and connecting with, the presenters.
Thank you so much. So what I would like to do is just give 1 minute to each of our speakers to do a closing remark of their presentation. So let's start. Okay, Dr. Padmini left. Let's start with Reverend Susanna. Just 1 minute. In 1 minute, what can you round up about your topic, your title?
I'm simply going to ask each of you to ask yourselves, am I in balance? Do I feel I have balance? If not, what are the steps that you can take to come back to balance? Is there joy in your life? If not, what can you do to increase joy? Do I have inner peace? If not, what can I do to increase inner peace? Are you truly living? I do funerals. I ask people at the end of a funeral, are you truly living? If the person who had passed would be talking to you from the other side of the veil, they would ask you, are you truly living? And if you are not, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Life is short. So all of you, to the students here who may be starting out on their spiritual journey, Dr. Remy has come up with a wonderful group of teachers and professionals that can help you. How do you know when you need help? Well, one, when you can't cope on your own. If you're seeking something, the answers will come. So that's all. I just wish you love, peace, inner peace. And I invite you to truly live by loving yourself and loving each other.
Thank you, Reverend Susanna. Let's go to her Royal Grace, Olamiji P.S. Adefumi.
Thank you so much, Professor.
My apologies, I skipped you. I didn't see that you were still connected.
No apologies necessary. This has just been an amazing forum. I am so privileged to be a part. I apologize that my screen is off. I have switched locations. As I mentioned, we are in festival mode. We're celebrating the Yoruba New Year, which is basically the beginning of spring. We believe in our community and our tradition and culture that the year begins when things begin to bloom. And so I don't really have many closing remarks. Just wanted to give my utmost gratitude. I share in so many of the understandings of the speakers. Is just beautiful, just amazing, enlightening. I was getting chills. It's just all around spiritual experience this morning. And so I'm just very grateful to be able to share in this with everyone. And I look forward, Professor, hopefully, we're able to connect again with extended time so that we can go a little deeper. 10 minutes was just not enough. I could have been on this for a few more hours. And so, yeah, thank you very much. Deep gratitude. And I wish everyone a happy Yoruba New Year.
Thank you so much. I said the same thing. We need at least 3 hours just for the beginning of this program. And then we go in depth because most times when we're talking of women's, issues affecting women and how women can overcome those challenges, we put a time limit on those accomplishments. So we will definitely be in touch and, for a more extended conversation. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to call Mrs. Carrie Brett Etsy for her closing remark.
Hi again, everyone. I think the most important thing I just want to leave you with is the idea that the heart was built to heal. So there is no trauma, there's no despair, there is no agony, there is no difficulty, there is no challenge that our heart can not deal with, because our Creator created our physical bodies. And so our physical bodies are amazing and it heals in so many different ways. We're attacked by the cold, the flu, a cut, so many things, but our bodies were meant to heal. And that also makes us understand that every other part of us, the spirit, the soul, the heart, the mind, was also meant to heal. It was actually created to heal. And once we have that kind of mindset and that kind of heart as our foundation, then we can move forward. And the last point is just understanding that we were not built as human beings to function by ourselves in isolation. We were built as human beings to function together, just like the redwoods, right? That live so long and that are so strong. We are built to hold each other, right? And to connect with each other and to exchange with each other. Everything in nature goes through an exchange process. Everything in our bodies goes through an exchange process. And that's the same thing with us. And so what I spend a lot of my time doing is I'm a dean at a middle school in New York City, but a lot of time I spend doing mind education. So I'm a mind education specialist, and we talk about the mind and the heart and the soul and the spirit and how to nurture that part of what makes us who we are so that we can overcome anything that life throws at us. And once we have that foundation, we're good to go. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Carrie Brett Etsy. Dr. Debbie Almontese, your closing remarks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you and having this opportunity to be with you this afternoon. I want to say to all my sisters and all those that are joining us, in addition to the men that are joining us, to thank you all for being allies and amplifying and uplifting our voices and making sure that you help us center our voices. I want to wish all of you a blessed rest of this month and say to you that this work must continue. It must continue through the legacy that we are all leaving in our own parts of the world by making sure that we uplift and amplify the voices of little girls, young women, and women, and making sure that us prosper and are able to meet our fullest potential as women. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Debbie. Dr. Shenzira. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, greetings. I really am thankful for the opportunity to share. And my closing message would just be that we remember that our ancient sacred traditions, AST, allow us to speak. And we speak by the actions that we do. The same piece that I shared in regards to culture, healing, arts, technology, and spirituality for life, inspiration, freedom, and education. I really encourage us to expand that beyond International Women's Month, to expand that through this season of the spring equinox to the vernal equinox that happens every March 22nd around this time of the year. And for us to, as our sister shared, this is a Yoruba New Year. It's important for us to vibrate in spring and upliftment so that we actually move to heal beyond this pandemic of 2020 and any other pandemic that comes to interfere with our ability to really shine and be in the glory and the blessings of the Most High Creative Source. And I'm very grateful. Thank you again for the opportunity. I greet you in the same way that I started as I leave, Hotep. I pray that tranquility, peace, and balance stays foremost in all of our lives. Blessing.
Thank you so much, Sister Dr. Ochenzira. Now I would like to invite the main sponsor for this program. Without their support, this program would not have been possible, and it's the Women's Resource Center at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. I'm part of the committee, for Women's HERStory Month at BMCC, and they've been spearheading all the meetings, all the activities and events for this month. So I would like to introduce you to Miss Victoria Apostle Marius, who is one of the program coordinators at the Women's Resource Center at Borough of Manhattan Community College.
Thank you, Dr. Apollo, for such a kind introduction. Hello, everybody. And I would like to actually say that such events would not be possible without organizers like Dr. Alapo, who has such a grateful network of bringing such beautiful people together. We are just the logistic part of everything in the backstage, and would not be able to do those things if we would not have such amazing faculty at BMCC who are willing to volunteer their time, their knowledge, and their network to bring such amazing people to BMCC, so we get to know them as well. Today, I will just join to enrich myself with knowledge and energy from the speakers, but also to thank you on behalf of the Women's HERStory Month Committee and on behalf of the Women's Resource Center at BMCC. We do this type of events, and we celebrate the Women's HERStory Month every year in March at the school. And sometimes we extend events in April as well. And we do that with the goal to raise awareness about the history, the present, and the future that women still have to face in the United States, and not only around the world as well. So thank you very much for joining us today, sharing your knowledge, your wisdom. It was such a blessing to be part of this event and just listen. And I don't know, it was just like a shower of greatness, and listening and enjoying everything, every piece of advice, every piece of story that you shared with us. I just got a ton of energy that I'll be carrying at least for the next week with me. So thank you very much once again. It was amazing, beautiful, and stay in touch with us at BMCC, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you back in any other capacity or organize any other events so more people at our school get to enjoy your wisdom, your knowledge, and your energy. And of course, thank you, Dr. Alapo, for being such a great partner in crime. Not just only this year, we've been partnering together for several years. Dr. Lapo also chaired the whole Women's HERStory Month committee a few years ago, and she always brings amazing people and puts amazing events together. So it's always a pleasure to work together and do stuff together, be a little out of the boundaries at BMCC. Thank you very much to all of you, and I wish you a nice Friday and weekend. The weekend is coming, so some time for ourselves.
Thank you so much, Ms. Victoria, for the comments and the closing remarks. I want to once again thank the Women's Resource Center at Borough of Manhattan Community College, also my department, Center for Ethnicity and Race Studies, and my chair, Dr. Patricia Matthews. I would like to thank all our guest speakers, Her Royal Grace Olami GPS Adefumi, Dr. Padmini Moti, Dr. Debbie Almontese, Dr. Shenzira Davis Kahina, and Reverend Susanna Macomb. Thank you so much for your presentations. Again, I wish we had about 5 hours to continue this deliberation and finding ways in which we can discuss from spirituality to wellness and self-love amidst the pandemic. And if you're hearing pots and pans from behind the scenes through my screen, that's my brother cooking. That's his contribution to Women's History Month. So, I try to mute my, sound every now and then, but his pots and pans just kept going on. But, I'm looking forward to whatever he's going to be cooking. So that's absolutely okay. So thank you all so much. Before we leave, if you don't mind to put your cameras on, so that we can take a photo, a group photo together.
And
so
if we, sorry, Remy, all the
Yes.
speakers who are still in the room, if you don't mind to stay behind 1-2 minutes just to discuss a little bit about the logistic part regarding the honorarium. So we'll keep you just for 2 more minutes, no longer than that, after we take the picture.
Yes. Do you mind to all put your cameras on, please? I still see a few people. Yes. All right. So on a count of 3, 1, 2, 3. I'll take one more. 1, 2, 3. Say happy. Great. Thank you all so much for joining us on this panel discussion. Let's give all the speakers a warm round of applause. Without your input, your insight, your wisdom, your contributions, this program would not have taken place today. So thank you so much. And I hope that you shared your contact information, your website, your emails, your information. I tried as best as possible to post your bios, but include your website in the chat so that others can, the audience can follow up with you. And I want to thank our co-sponsors, World Yoga Community. Thank you so much, also for creating the flyer and for, being a man amongst women in, creating besides the flyer, always supporting us. I would like to thank Oyotunji African Kingdom in South Carolina, New York Medical College School of Health Practices and Health Sciences and Practice, and American Medical Women Association. Also, thank you to Bridging Cultures Group and the Muslim Society that Dr. Debbie is board president of. Also, thank you so much to Good News Mission and International Youth Fellowship, IYF, and to Peank M. Smaitawi Organization and the AST Speaks program. Thank you so much to everyone. God bless you all.